Okay, so just like to take the time to welcome to the show my new best friend. I like him way more than Disco Inferno. Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful.com. Sean, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Did you know that I met Disco Inferno a few weeks ago?
I'm sorry, are you okay?
Yeah, I was able to survive that. He is also the commissioner of a fantasy football league that I am in.
Oh God, did
And
he ruin it
he,
and botch it? And
yeah, oh yeah, he's definitely a heel authority figure, without a doubt. He is an objective piece of trash as it pertains to fantasy football.
yeah, I mean, like I don't mean anything in a bad way about him, but I just would love to see him beaten with hammers. But I don't mean that in a rude way.
I mean, I think it's reasonable. I think that's reasonable within the spirit of competition.
Yeah, or not.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, see, this is the thing. This is what I don't like all these snowflakes out there that read too much into it. Like, just because I want this go beaten to death with sticks and they go, oh, you're being a bully. It's like, I only said the beaten to death once.
well, hey, Disco can handle it. If you can't get hammers, we can just find La Parka and he can gather some chairs and he can finish the job.
That's perfect. But of course, for people who can see this in the video version, which will be on Hughezy Entertainment on YouTube, we can see in the background the logo for Fightful.com, which of course covers MMA, covers wrestling, and covers my personal favorite sport, as I'm sure you can tell by my physical condition, boxing. So the latest story that's happened in the boxing world is Tyson Fury just had a pretty decisive win at the weekend,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are talking about him. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about Tyson Fury right now is this. Right, I think the fact that he came back from his mental health problems and the drink abuse and the drug abuse and the weight gain is incredible.
Yeah.
But I've got to say that win is nothing to be boasting about.
Yeah.
To me, that was a guy. So, what do you think about the fact that Tyson Fury is fighting people clearly not on his level?
Well, I mean, he did fight. The Wilder fight is the fight to make now. With Ruiz beating Joshua, that's the fight to make now. As far as fighting people not in his level, I mean, unfortunately, we see it a lot in boxing. Not nearly as much as it seems like we used to, at least around the time that Fightful launched. But uh, Tom Schwartz, yeah, you could argue he was undefeated and all that, but it's clear that he was not there. He was not on the Tyson Fury level. But Tyson Fury knows what fight is there. He knows who he should be fighting. He should be fighting Deontay Wilder again. They should be doing it this year. Bob Arum is out of his mind saying that it's going to do more than Pacquiao Mayweather. But that is the fight to make, especially with Anthony Joshua flat on his ass somewhere, recovering from the Ruiz beatdown. But it seems so simple. Boxing has had some heavyweight softballs lobbed at it in the last few years, and they have whiffed repeatedly. So I'm ready to see it again. It was a fight that I was ready to see immediately after last December's at the Staples Center.
See, that's what I don't understand the explanation behind them not going straight into that rematch.
Yeah, didn't make any sense to me.
And a lot of people say that, oh, well, Tyson Fury had him beat on points, beat on points. It's like, but he didn't beat him on points, though, did he? If Fury was as good as he said, Deontay Wilder should still be in hospital.
Yeah. And I mean, this has happened a few times in boxing, especially in recent years. It seemed like Triple G, Canelo was a slam dunk to go right back to it. It seems like they're going to get back there now, but you never know what can happen in boxing. I honestly thought that they were going to go Pacquiao and Horn again, run that one back, because I mean, that was a fun fight as well. But who knows if we'll ever get back there, because obviously what people thought Jeff Horn was actually accurate, that it was what he was. He had a great night, and maybe some fortunate things that happened his way that night as well. But it seems weird to me that it's almost like MMA is too prone to go to the immediate rematch that nobody asks for, and boxing won't go to the immediate rematch that everybody's asking for. There's no middle ground.
Yeah, I was always surprised that because I seen Joshua versus Klitschko live, and
Yeah.
that's the greatest combat sport fight I've ever seen. Like, I'm still in recovery from seeing it, and the fact that we didn't get that rematch, uh, business wise, made no sense to me. Like, that was the only. Now Klitschko's talking about coming back, and
Oh boy.
yeah, it's just a never ending onslaught of these legends that won't give it up when they should.
That was one of the most incredible things I've seen was Joshua knocking out Klitschko. I wish I could have been there to see it, but just seeing Wembley Stadium and seeing it full, like from home, I even had to grab my wife. I was like, "You got to see this! Like, you got to see this! What's unfolding here? One of the greatest heavyweight boxers ever is about to get it. Like, it's going crazy right now. That was very special. So you were there to see that live?
I just realized that I misspoke. What I meant to say was I seen it live on pay-per-view. But
Hey, it was that important of a moment to where I remember it right now and remembering going to my wife and being like, "You got to watch this with me. You got to come up here." That was a special moment.
well, speaking of special moments that have happened in our history, maybe I think it was 2 weeks ago now, maybe a week ago, there was a show WWE did called Super Showdown, and we got to see The Undertaker versus Bill Goldberg. Now,
Jesus Christ.
in my opinion, not to get all controversial and political, it wasn't a very good match. But at the same time, do you think that some people over criticized it, and the fact that now we can both agree that part timer versus part timer never makes sense, and especially people at that age wrestling,
Yeah.
it never makes sense. But do you think that Goldberg was unfairly criticized for the fact that he get legitimately knocked out badly during it, yet people
No,
still
no,
stood up?
because they could have died, and I don't know that Goldberg did or didn't have a concussion before he ever came out. I know that he was busted open before he came out. I know he has a penchant for running his head into hard objects backstage. I know that people that I talked to backstage were not happy about that. They thought that it could have been really, really bad. I think considering that he did that, he was fairly criticized, and because he was bullish and hit that corner so hard, I think he was fairly criticized. And considering the fact that he forgot how to do a leg lock, fairly criticized. Messed up a jackhammer, fairly criticized. Didn't grip the Undertaker on a tombstone, fairly criticized. That match was a trash fire. It was miserable. Goldberg, if it would have been left to 3 or 4 minutes, even with the concussion, I think they could have figured it out. There would have been some botches, but it wouldn't have been so bad. Those two guys did not need to have a 9-minute match. That was a bad idea all around.
To me, the problem is it should only ever be a part timer versus an up and comer who could do with the rub. Like, if that was, say, Drew McIntyre versus Goldberg, I
Yeah.
could see that. But these old timer matches keep going wrong for these Saudi shows. So I would say learn from that. But then don't they get a say in the booking, don't they?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. You mean the Saudi Arabians?
Mm-hmm.
They definitely have people they recommend and who they want on their shows. I don't know if they can. I'm sure they can suggest certain matches. I mean, at one point they requested the Ultimate Warrior and Yokozuna, both of which who are long dead. But somewhere Falaba from Impact is like, sign me. I can pretend. He's ready to go. But yeah, it's a matter of what they want. It's a matter of what WWE feels is okay to put on. But I mean, WWE had to sign off on that. They could have said, no, this is dangerous. We can't do it. But they didn't.
Well, speaking of stuff that shouldn't have been put on, there was a video put online by Matt Riddle where
Yeah,
he pretty much buried Bill Goldberg. And this isn't the first
sure
time
did.
he's done this sort of stuff where he's trashed people online. So but do you not think that in this day and age, that's really stupid of him to do something like that?
Somewhat, yeah, I do. But they're not going to let him go anywhere. You think they're going to let him go and let AEW sign him or Ring of Honor or New Japan? They will not risk that. They know what Matt Riddle is worth. and they know that he is very good, and they will not risk him going anywhere else. So while I do think it's ill-advised, he's being honest. I wouldn't do that if I were him, at least to that degree, but they're not going to cut him. No chance. And maybe they book him really bad, but that would be an interesting situation to watch unfold, considering the Matt Riddle that I know.
Because that's something that I thought, because I understand that Riddle's doing that to because he's relating to his fellow bros.
Yeah.
But to do that in the WWE, where you can get buried for getting your hair cut without permission,
yeah,
I just think that this is the sort of stuff that then you can then see the internet going, but why is WWE? It's like, well, this is why, because he's stoned and he's putting out videos trashing one of Triple H's friends.
Well, I don't know if he smokes anymore. I don't know if he smokes weed anymore. I'm not sure. It's not something I've asked him, but I know that he said he was willing to adjust almost anything to work for WWE.
Well, one of the things I'd love to talk to you about, because you seem like you'd have a good spin on this. Obviously, with AEW, started up back in January or something.
Yeah.
And I also work for Conan and Disco Inferno's podcast, Keeping It 100. I'm sure you're a massive fan. We'll get some merchandise sent out to you, some cups, mugs, and sort of Disco's bras. But one of the big things that I've noticed is from dealing with their YouTube stuff, they get a lot of really intense marks from AEW. And as a long-time wrestling fan, I've got to say that I think that the AEW fan base is taking wrestling way, way too seriously. So what's your spin on that?
Well, you're going to have passionate fan bases no matter what. I have really angry people that are mad that AEW even exists. I have Joshi fans that don't make any sense. I have Impact fans that have told me to kill myself. So there are people all across the board that really take things too seriously. The best thing, I guess, is to kind of decipher which ones are bad. Like, I do think that there's a subsection of Impact fans that are bad for that brand and prevent people from wanting to check that out. I'm sure there are a few in the AEW group of people that do that too, but I've not run into those yet. But then again, I'm not exactly the lightning rod that Conan and Disco Inferno are. So they can conjure up those comments a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, there's a video I put up about 2 days ago. It was of Sammy Callahan, and he was talking about Jim Cornette's comments about Sonny Kiss.
Yeah.
And I put that video up, and this is not an exaggeration, within 4 minutes, the video had over 100 comments, and it was just these endless trolls saying the N-word, calling them, the homophobic stuff, just non-stop. And I just think,
oh yeah,
these fans have to calm the fuck down.
If we post anything about Nyla Rose or Sonny Kiss, you get a giant amount of people who will hate watch it because they're gay or transgender. It is real weird, man. Like, people hate something so much that they're like, I want to sit through this video and then leave a comment. Like, okay, go ahead.
One of the comments that the video got, calling Sonny Kiss all its homophobic shit, this guy was wearing a Metallica t-shirt. And I had to say to him, you do understand that it wasn't for Freddie Mercury, there never would have been a Metallica.
Yeah.
So why are you trashing gay people? If it's because of gay people, the band you love, and it's like, and even at that, Sonny Kiss could probably beat the shit out of half these people.
Oh yeah, with that, Sonny Kiss is a hell of an athlete. Yeah, Sonny Kiss could for sure beat the living shit out of 95% of YouTube commenters, if not more.
But do you think that marks are getting out of control, and the fact that, I don't know if you've seen, well, I'm sure you have seen the video footage of, I think it was a AAA show, and Scarlet. Yeah, and it's like, what the fuck's going on? Like, how did you not think that, maybe I shouldn't grab this woman? And people are saying he grabbed her tits. I didn't see that, but the fact that he grabbed her at all.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, there's such a history of people reaching out and touching wrestlers, like patting their back or touching their shoulder. You don't do what he did. Like, and she didn't see it. Because I'll tell you this, in my very limited experience with Scarlet Bordeaux, I get the feeling that things would have went a lot different if she would have realized what happened. Then later on, there was a male wrestler in the crowd who was jumping over the barricade, and a woman slapped him on the ass. Now, that didn't get nearly the attention, but you don't do that unless a performer invites you to touch them. You should probably just not touch them, especially modern day. Can't do that.
It's absolutely insane. But I got to ask you this as well. So AEW did their pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, and apparently it drew between 98,000 to 101,000 pay-per-view buy rates. Now, while that's good, when you take into consideration that Impact gets around 200,000 viewers a week for their TV show, do you think that technically it's okay to say that Impact is bigger than AEW?
No, Impact has never sold a pay-per-view with that many buys ever. Even in their heyday, they didn't. And considering that Impact has no television presence to speak of in the States, they have a Twitch stream, they have Pursuit that often forgets to continue that the show is on. I don't think so at all. I think that the Impact talent roster is outstanding. They have some really good wrestlers, and I think that especially their women's division is top-notch. But with AEW on TNT and doing 100,000 buys, even globally, man, Impact can't crack that.
The thing is, I really don't get why Impact isn't bigger, because as you say, their roster is like, I think Killer Cross is the best thing in wrestling right now. And he was on this podcast before, and he was terrifying. Tessa Blanchard is maybe the best American wrestler alive. I just don't. Then you get LAX. Then you get the crew, their light heavyweight division or whatever they call, or the X division. Sorry.
Yeah.
And of course they booked that bastard Disco Inferno. But nothing's perfect, eh?
I think they have probably a dozen people on that roster that any other company should fall all over themselves to get, and Impact has them.
I just hope that but that's something else I got to ask you. You mentioned the name Scarlet Bordeaux, but there was an interview that Killer Cross did recently, and he spoke about the fact that they're quite lowly paid by Impact. And it does stink that she's working so hard for such little money. But at the same time, do you think it's fair to say that that's kind of an entitled reaction, in that she's barely been on TV a year, and they're already seeming to expect to be getting paid huge money? Like, do you not think that's a bit?
I don't know what their schedules are. That's the thing. Based on the type of content that she films, because a lot of her workload has been her doing backstage skits, if you remember. I don't know how many days went into that. If she filmed them all at once, if she filmed them over multiple days. I mean, I know she hasn't wrestled that many matches in Impact. So it's hard for me to gauge that, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, she's on TV, she should be making $100,000. Well, Impact's not running that many shows. So it's hard for me to tell unless I know how many days she's working, how many shows Impact is running, but what their TV deal is. Man, it's really, really tough.
But of course, Fightful.com covers pro wrestling, covers boxing, and also covers MMA. But I'm going to ask you this, and this is a common opinion from most people, but do you think that UFC has any truly big money matches left?
Right now?
Yeah.
Conor McGregor against anybody, that would work. Him against Khabib would still sell. I mean, Khabib would mop the floor with him, but that's really it. Outside of anything involving Conor McGregor, it really doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, I think that with McGregor, whatever his next fight is his final fight, because he's making so much money. Like, with his whiskey has sold shitloads.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be known by a lot of people, by a whole generation of people, as a whiskey salesman instead of a fighter.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of people don't know that Dwayne Johnson used to wrestle. They just think he's the star of the shittest film of all time, Baywatch.
It was a terrible movie. My God.
But yeah, with UFC, like, apart from I would say Amanda Nunes versus Cyborg 2, they really don't have any huge fights left, and I think it's starting to show, and that they're doing deals with like ESPN and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, with Nunes and Cyborg, it won't sell that much. I mean, especially it's really hard to gauge what it'll sell considering the new ESPN deal here domestically. It's really, really hard to gauge that. But I mean, it didn't do a great number last time from what I remember. But I mean, it's an okay fight. But I mean, we've seen Nunes knock Cyborg out and do it fairly quickly. So, oh man, and that was it. I thought that was a big fight. I thought it was worth a lot more than what most people did. But it's just not what UFC expected. But the thing is, they got money in the bank now. So what's it matter? They've got their money in the bank, and like you mentioned, they did 700,000 for Nunes Cyborg, but that was with Jones and Gustafsson on top of it. So maybe if some big light heavyweight emerges, maybe if Johnny Walker keeps knocking people out nonstop over the next year, and then you build to him and Jones, maybe. If Jones goes up to heavyweight and fights Cormier, I think that does a good number. That's it.
True, but there's so much riding on that because with Jon Jones, like the guy just can't stop taking drugs.
Like, yeah, well, I mean, he's been all right the last year or so, I think. This is the longest stretch, this 6-month period that we've seen of him not messing up, and he fights in a couple of weeks. If he gets through that, I mean, since 2014, we've not seen him really get through one fight without having some sort of major issue. This will be the first time that he's fought more than once in a year since 2013. So if he can do that, then I kind of believe that he's at least got a cap on whatever the hell it is that's wrong with him.
But of course, earlier we were talking about the success of AEW, and they just recently sold out their second pay-per-view event, All Out, in about 15 minutes. And on the internet kind of shit themselves and clapping their hands in praise for AEW. But this is my problem with the AEW fan base, is that I think they're getting way too much praise. Like, I put it like this. So AEW has sold out their second arena show of the year months in advance, which is great. But then you look at WWE, they've already done 3 stadium shows this year. They've done international tours. They've got 2 weekly TV shows. They've got the house show business, yet they're not getting applauded. So I think that WWE is over-criticized while AEW is getting overpraised.
I think considering the quality of WWE's product, I think they're fairly criticized because it's not been inspired at all. But WWE's also been around for decades and decades. AEW is just starting out, and the buzz that you get from selling out shows is, especially consecutive big shows like that, because Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen, it's really hard for us to even tell what those numbers are. I know there are a lot of people that are saying, oh, why don't you report that Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen aren't doing great? And I'm like, well, because we don't know. AEW doesn't send us press releases when things don't sell out. They send us press releases when things do sell out. That's how we get that number confirmed. I think they probably should have tried to run United Center or Allstate. Maybe they did because that one sold out so quick. But WWE's not selling out a ton of shows. Their money is in their rights deal, and so much of their TV is uninspired. That's why they get the criticism and all that. I mean, their stock hasn't been hot lately. I mean, you look at WWE stock, and it hit a couple months ago. It hit like 100. Now it's down to like 75, and it's rebounded a little bit. I think over the past month, maybe it's like came up from 72 to 75, but it's hard to praise WWE when we've seen how much better WWE can be from at least a live event standpoint, from a television number standpoint, from a TV quality standpoint, and now from a financial standpoint. We know that they can be better in all of these areas, and I think that's why they get the criticism. If this were an upstart promotion, WWE, and they just started, I feel like they probably wouldn't get that criticism. They'd probably have the groundswell of support. But because AEW is something different, I think that's why they have so much of that support and are, I don't want to say exempt from criticism, but largely don't get as much as anybody else. because quite frankly, there's not as much subject matter to criticize yet. We don't know what we're criticizing to some degree.
Why do you think that WWE keeps booking rematches so much? Because they've got an event coming up. I think it's this weekend called Stomping Ground, which I seen the match lineup on Twitter and I thought it was from a parody account. Because like they're doing Rollins versus Corbin again, and that's got to be this year alone, maybe the 10th time they've worked a match on TV or pay-per-view in 2019 alone, and it's only June.
Yeah, that one's puzzling, man. They ran back a bunch of rematches. They put somebody who isn't even on SmackDown in a SmackDown title match. There are a lot of wrestlers unhappy with the wild card thing because they don't know where they're going to be from week to week. But the Baron Corbin, Seth Rollins one is really puzzling because, as you mentioned, it seems like they work together all the time. Now, the thing is, they've only had one singles match this year, but they had 2 straight Raw matches against each other in December. They worked at Fastlane in a 6-person tag. They worked Shield's final chapter against each other. They worked on Monday Night Raw. They worked 2 Monday Night Raws in May together. So altogether, these guys have been in the ring. This will be, I think, the 10th time since September between tag matches and singles matches. Part of the thing that makes a big fight so special is that we haven't seen it before. Or that the first time that we've seen it, like Wilder and Fury, something happened where everybody was clamoring for a rematch. Everybody was like, okay, we need to run that back. Nobody was asking for a rematch of Baron Corbin and Seth Rollins after Baron Corbin ran out of the ring, grabbed a chair, and distracted himself. Nobody. So that's really confusing. And it's a bummer because I think that by and large, WWE puts on really good pay-per-views, usually. There are some exceptions, but I just don't expect this one to be it. It seems like a really lame duck show.
Yeah, and the fact is that every match is a rematch of something that wasn't so great before. Like there's no reason to watch this.
Yeah.
But
That's how. I mean, not necessarily no reason to watch it, but nobody believes that Baron Corbin is going to beat Seth Rollins. Nobody reasonably. Maybe some 6-year-old kid believes it. Nobody believes that Dolph Ziggler is going to beat Kofi Kingston. Yeah. Nobody. Nobody really believes that Lacey Evans is going to beat Becky Lynch. They had to give her a tag win last week on Raw because she had lost 5 matches in a row. Reigns and McIntyre, maybe. I think maybe they put Shane over Roman so people would think that Drew was going to win, but they had a really uninspired, not great match at WrestleMania. Mm. So so many of those matches, nobody believes the challenger's going to win.
Well, speaking of WrestleMania, of course, it was the first time we've ever had women main event at WrestleMania pay-per-view, and I'm going to say this, as a huge fan of women's wrestling, and we mentioned earlier how good it is in Impact, and I do love a lot of the WWE roster, it's fair to say that main event was not great, and it was average at best. So the question I've got to ask you, the topic I'd like to talk to you about is, do you think that a lot of the women wrestlers are overpraised and overcriticized?
Yeah, I think that's extreme opinions one way or another are gonna happen there. I liked the match. What I hated was the finish. That was a stupid finish to book, stupid in execution, bad on the ref. It couldn't have been worse. The ref messed it up, Ronda messed it up, and it was a dumb finish anyway. Becky Lynch should have tapped out Ronda Rousey straight up. Ronda Rousey was leaving. There was no reason to not tap her out. And then if you want to bring Ronda Rousey back in 2 years and run it back, you can do that. But that was a garbage finish. And I thought a pretty good match that preceded it. Some incredible entrances, the Joan Jett thing, the Charlotte Flair thing. And then Becky didn't need any of that because she was Becky Lynch. But that was just a dumb idea, and it was done even worse. As far as them being over-criticized and overpraised, yeah, I do. I think when they do something positive, people are like, oh, look what they did. But when they do something wrong, it's like, oh, look at her. She botches all the time. I see that a lot with Sasha Banks in particular. She's either overpraised or overcriticized.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that, like, with Bailey at the last pay-per-view, which I can't remember the name of at all. Money in the Bank, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the way they booked her in that one night, it actually pretty much, well, yeah, I would say pretty much fixed her after 2 to 3 years of shit.
They wasted her for a year and a half. They didn't do anything with her for a year and a half. Just completely wasted her career.
So, and then they were able to fix her and bring her back, and those were some of her best performances, and I'm loving her as champion. But at the same time, I don't think it's out of the question for a woman to be criticized without being called a sexist. That seems to be the real problem these days.
Yeah, people go overboard on that type of stuff all the time. I'm not really keen on that.
Well, Sean, we've now come to what I call the big three questions. And these
Okay.
were usually two that I ask everyone, but I've added a new one just because they're important and everybody gets answered. Everyone has to answer these, and there's right and wrong answers. Here's number one.
I'm ready.
Who is better, Tupac or Wu-Tang Clan?
Ah, I like Tupac. I'm going with Tupac, but I'm going to get torn up online for that.
Who is better, Queen or the Beatles?
Queen, without a doubt. Not even close.
They really are the better band. But here's the all important one, and this is where everything can fall apart for you.
Oh, boy.
The Spice Girls are back. Who is your favorite Spice Girl?
Baby Spice, because I think, yeah, I had a crush on her when I was a kid.
Baby Spice is the best Spice Girl. She's the cheeky looking one.
Yeah.
So, Sean, I just want to thank you for your time. I always wanted to talk wrestling and MMA and boxing and Spice Girls with you.
But long overdue.
Oh, yeah. And is there anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, guys, visit Fightful.com. Follow me at Sean Ross Sapp. We have FightfulWrestling.com, FightfulMMA.com, FightfulBoxing.com. If you all don't like the mixture, you're able to divide those. Same goes for our Twitters. We have Fightful MMA, Fightful Wrestle, and then just Fightful. We're on Instagram, Facebook, all over the place. We have a premium site, FightfulSelect.com. There is a little bit of everything at Fightful.com. We really, with our small staff, we go out and do everything, YouTube, Twitter, all that good stuff. But I want to thank you so much for having me on, man.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for the quick reply. And Conan, if you're listening, you're next.
Who'd he ever beat?
Oh, I'm going to send him this clip.